It's definitely a testament to what God will do when you trust Him. And really, sometimes that trust is a little tiny slither of trust. If we're being honest, and doubt creeps in, right? Doubt isn't necessarily
Right.
like a big thing that just hits you off the rip. It kind of mounts, if you will, right? It'll be like, oh, like a little seed of doubt will come in
Oh,
here. It's like you
yeah.
going in full, like, yeah, this is gonna happen. And then you might get a little push this way. You're like, oh, hold on.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay, wait, maybe God's not going to do it. And that's what the enemy does.
Right.
He tries to throw those little fiery darts of doubt, and then it gets to the point like, do you really believe that's going to happen for you? It's not going to happen for you. Why would he do that for
Or
you?
did God really say? That's what he told Eve. Did God really say just that little bit of twisting the truth
Yeah,
or presenting a lie that could sound like truth?
yeah,
And then you
and
start believing it. You start rehearsing it. You start listening to that voice because doubt has a voice.
yeah,
And when you start engaging with it, it turns into complete doubt.
yeah, and
And then you start thinking that God is not able to do anything for you.
yeah,
Then you
nor will
start
he.
doubting
He doesn't
even
want to.
God's existence. Yeah,
Listen,
and that's exactly how demonic it really is. That it starts off little, where it starts off in circumstances,
yeah.
and then it grows to the point where you're doubting even God's existence, that He's actually real.
And so I think the other side of the coin is this, right? Like doubt can also be the thing that drives your faith deeper, right? Stronger.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, the winds may blow, but then you're like, but God said, but I know my father
Mhm.
as this. I know my dad is this. He's always provided for me. And that's why it's important to know the word, right? It's important to hide the
Right.
word in your heart. It's important to have community that when you're like, bruh, I'm down bad. I can't believe this. Or, even if it's not that you're down to the point that you're like, oh, I can't believe this. It might be like, hey, I'm having, I know I heard this. I know that this is what I'm believing for, but this little gnat is in my ear. I need somebody to
Right.
just encourage me in that this is what I'm doing the right thing. And so when you push back against those doubts, that's how faith is
Mhm.
increased, right? I'll
Right.
find it somewhere, but there's a scripture that talks about, trials and tribulation, like all these things work together basically to encourage you, to push you further along. And
Mhm.
so while doubt can drive you to the point of unbelief, right, it can also drive you to say, I'm stronger in my faith because I stood against those doubts. I pushed back against those things that were trying to plague my mind, that made me think it wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't happen for me. And I stood in
Right.
that. And now look at me, right? Now I can encourage myself next time, because that's a huge thing.
Mhm.
Because sometimes someone's not going to be around, right? Like this walk, as much as it
Listen.
is not, we're not called to be solo Christians. We're not, right?
Right.
Christians, people in
Absolutely.
general, are designed for community. But there's those times where God
Absolutely.
has to get you by yourself so that you know that you know that you know that you know that whatever comes up, I heard this, I know my God to be this. This is something I guess we can talk about at a later date.
Yeah.
Knowing the nature of God is very important. It is very
Absolutely.
important, because when those doubts come in, when those things that don't line up with His voice, with His word, who you know Him to be, right? It's because you know His nature, right? If those things don't
Right.
sound like His nature, it ain't Him.